I'm delighted to be here today. My name is Bill Mundell, and I'm an entrepreneur, first and foremost, and sometimes reluctant film producer.
So we knew that your first business trip to China was back in 1991. So if you can recall, what were some of your first impressions of China, or did the trip change some of your previous perceptions of China as well?
Well, I have to say in 1991, I knew very little about China, and that first trip was certainly eye-opening in several respects. I was going there because we received an RFP for a very large software installation at the State Statistical Bureau. And this company was a software company that did time series analysis. And we asked them, what kind of site license they were interested in. They said, well, there's 2 million employees in the State Statistical Bureau. So we knew immediately that that was an enormous contract, so far and away larger than anything we had previously dealt with. And so I understood one thing very early on about China, which is that the law of large numbers operates.
So from your past work, we know that you made a significant contribution to positive political reform in California through your documentary Gerrymandering. As an accomplished businessman, what made you become interested in joining the film industry, and what inspires you to become part of this industry?
Well, like I said in the beginning, I turned to film literally as the last resort. I tend to gravitate to films when I see a problem that I can't fix in any other way. I tried everything in my power to pass redistricting reform in California. In 2005, I qualified for the California ballot, an initiative campaign to create a citizens commission in California. And like a number of Governor Schwarzenegger's initiatives at that time, it went down in flames. Despite spending tens of millions of dollars. And about 6 to 8 months after that, I got approached by a group in New York called the Green Film Company. And they had just produced a film called By the People, the election of Barack Obama. And they said, look, you've created a national profile for yourself on this subject. It would make a really interesting documentary. And I literally thought it was a bad joke. The idea, we couldn't even get people to listen to 60 or 90-second commercials convincingly on the subject of gerrymandering. I couldn't even envision a 90-minute full-feature documentary. But I suppose because I was still licking my wounds on the defeat of that initiative, I went forward with the project. And then some magic started to happen. The film went to the Tribeca Film Festival. At that very day that it premiered in Tribeca, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who I had recruited to be in the film, was on the Jay Leno show. And he was asked, well, I hear you have another movie out. And how is it that a sitting governor has time to make a movie? And he said, well, this is a subject I'm very passionate about. And they played a clip of our little movie. And in the audience watching on TV was Charles Munger Jr., who, unbeknownst to me, was looking to pick up where I had left off on the redistricting reform process in California. And I got a call from him. He said, look, I heard on the Jay Leno show about this movie. Could you, send me a copy of it? We sent him a copy of the film. He sent it, and he came back and got in touch, and he said, I have a really crazy idea. Would you be interested in selling 1 million copies of your film to me? And I said, oh, what for? And he said, well, the 60-second commercials clearly don't work on this. I'm thinking about, for the first time in political history, to direct mail a full film to high probability voters. And that's exactly what he did. He financed a theatrical release. And if he was sitting here right now, he would say that that made the difference in actually passing this citizen commission, which eventually passed in 2010.
Shifting gears a little bit to the newest documentary you have, what really motivated you and inspired you in producing Better Angels?
Well, first, I was inspired by the movie Gerrymandering that I made. I thought if we could solve as vexing a problem as gerrymandering in as complicated a state as California, maybe, just maybe, we could move the needle on the U.S. China relationship with a similar type of film. I made the film because I wanted the American people and the Chinese people to become stakeholders, as opposed to just their government, to become individual stakeholders in what is arguably the most important bilateral relationship in the world. And clearly, we've reached a stage right now where we're at a critical inflection point in that relationship, and the need for an informed citizenry is greater than ever. So that's the reason that I made the film.
So, Better Angel focuses on a lot of individuals whose lives have been profoundly changed by the U.S. China relations. Who are some of the people that you interviewed for the film, and did any of them make a really lasting impression with the story that you heard from them?
Well, it was interesting. We had an embarrassment of riches. We shot 850 hours over a 5-year period, and it took almost 2 years to edit the film because we had all this incredible volume of content with great characters. It was very, very hard to decide who to put in and who to leave out. But I will say this, that the character that I personally found most interesting was Mr. Lee, the abacus master, because I think I thought that when we actually brought him to South Central Los Angeles to try to teach the abacus to 6, 7, 8-year-olds in a period of half a day or less than half a day, he had energized that group in a way that gave me great optimism for the future of the American children's interest and proclivities towards mathematics.
So we know Trump's election campaign blamed China for taking away the jobs of blue-collar workers in America. How do you hope to reach out to this demographic group whose lives have been impacted by the U.S.-China relations and outsourcing blue-collar jobs? And do you believe they can also benefit from better U.S.-China relations as well?
Well, I think it's a very, very good question. We certainly, in addressing that question, didn't try to address it directly. We didn't try to convince people of a narrative that China was or was not responsible for the loss of middle-class jobs in America. What we did is we showed that China is undergoing exactly the same kind of job disruption that the United States has gone through in the 1990s, with the same disruption of their middle-class lifestyles. And so, I think from that, what we hope the audience takes away is that globalization is truly agnostic with respect to its victims. So that was point number one. Point number two is that there's a number of dark sides to globalization. The rise of China, or the renaissance of China over the last 30 years, which is an unprecedented historical miracle, didn't happen without a cost to China. And one of the things also in the film that we explore is this whole concept of the unattended children, some 60 million unattended children in China who grow up without a mother or a father and in many, many cases without both, because they've moved to the city in order to get work or to another country in order to get work. And I think that's valuable for the American people to understand, because I think, you know, we're naturally as people envious, and I think we need to take a little bit of envy out of this and understand what was the reality of the great Chinese miracle, economic miracle.